Hello, welcome to the Reloading Podcast here on the Firearms Radio Network. How's everybody doing tonight? Hope everybody's having a good night. Somebody's gotta. All right. So first off, I want to thank Jake and Ryan over at Patriot Patch Company. That's patriotpatch.co. Awesome patches of the month, like this month's, which there's two. Here's number one. Right there. You can't really see it. It's freaking plastic. Yeah.
Why is everybody muted?
Because I'm pretty darn sure nobody wanted to hear me unpackaging those two. So there. Now you can see it better. No glare. Somebody went shopping. There. There's
Freedom
our
Eagle? Or that's a turkey.
this year. Did you call that an eagle?
Well, in my defense, I'm looking at a screen that's like 2 inches by 3 inches.
You should be used to that. Look at your phone all the time. You were thinking I was going to go somewhere else, didn't you?
Yeah, actually, I was expecting you to go somewhere else.
Aha! Surprise.
How do we take and do the audio automatic thing where it moves over to the person talking? Or can only the host do that?
We don't. We've got it set like this. So. But, no, we've got it set up like this. So, less issues with it flipping. But we can. If we really want to. We can do it. So whoever's talking and you're looking at their mug. Somebody else talking, see if it switches.
Nobody really wants to see my mug.
I guess it didn't switch.
It didn't switch for me.
No, didn't switch. There's a fellow with
Travis, say something again,
children.
please. Travis, say something again, please.
Powder coating rocks.
You missed a good roasting last week, Travis.
I'm sure I didn't. What are you talking about?
Yes, you did. Somebody came up with a good reason to use ALOX.
Yeah, no. I guess it doesn't switch. So whatever.
All right, leave it as is.
Piss on it.
Shut up, Chris. The A team's always up on the show. That would be Chris Sharp.
That all of us, you mean I shouldn't do this or this or way the heck up there? Okay.
Yeah, sinuses don't belong in the ocular cavity. Nor should you spit it in the air.
I didn't spit.
Hey, nice. I guess we are the B team tonight.
Yeah. All right. Anyway. I don't think we answered that question. So, all right. So, what's everybody been doing? I've been editing 274, trying to get that stupid noise gone. That's all I've been doing.
Yeah, it's a shame I fixed it.
So,
It was a simple fix, too.
it'd just be nice if the company we were using tech support would have given us that solution 2 weeks ago. Just another reason why I'm probably not going to go with this one to use. So, unfortunately, our volunteer tech support couldn't get the other one set up for tonight. So, we're going to do a test run of that tomorrow night and possibly have it ready for next week. So, but At any rate, so that's what I've done. What's everybody else?
Go ahead, Jim. Or Phil.
Go ahead,
Lots
Travis.
and lots of brass trimming. Got a big bucket of 5.56 that needs to get processed to ready to load. So I've been trimming and chamfering and deburring. And I'll be doing that for at least another 300 cases, and I'll be done.
How you doing it?
World's finest trimmer chucked up in a drill, and I used to use. I mean, I still use just a little hand turn chamfer deburring tool, but I recently switched out from the little bitty black RCBS one to I want to say it's a Lyman. It's their VLD tool. It's got a nice big aluminum knurled handle, and it chamfers and deburs at 30 degrees instead of 45.
If you put that in your cordless drill, it'll work, but you better be very careful because you can shorten your brass instantly.
That's why I'm doing it by hand, because that especially because the chamfer deburring parts they're angled at 30 degrees. It's very, very, very easy to inadvertently thin out the very end of the neck.
That's right.
So I do that by hand, and I don't think I'll come away from that for a while, because it's too easy, especially with a relatively new tool, and the tool itself is so sharp. I really when I chamfer the inside of the case neck, I stuff it in there. I twist it about 180 degrees, and I back it off just to knock all the burrs off, and that's it. I don't have to get in there any further, and I don't have to keep working on it back and forth. Just a quick little whop whop, and I'm done.
Just look at Mike's screen. Mike's got it. Mike, please explain. Please elaborate.
He's going to have to unmute himself first.
Yeah, he knows. He knows we want to hear him.
So, what I got here in my little hand, this is called a precision prep tool, and this is from Little Crow Gunworks. That's Little Crow Gunworks. Amazingly enough, the same company that makes this.
Mm-hmm.
WFT, world's finest trimmer.
Yep. So, one of the beautiful things about this is, Phil, this has got the same bits that you're using on your fancy little Lyman. Except for
Except that they'll rotate eccentrically.
So,
Mike, you got an empty case handy? There you go.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Case, what's that? So, what you do is you slide this on like this, and you spin it around like that. Then you take that like that, and you turn it around like that, and then it'll turn that real nice and pretty. And my camera would quit being a pain in the ass. It would focus. Someday I can afford a fancy camera that'll actually focus by itself.
Damn.
It's always fun to see him lose his temper and smack the camera.
It's still not focusing. That's okay, Mike. You don't have to hit it again. I thought I was getting whacked in the forehead.
No, I'm not smacking it again. But I am trying to figure out. There we go. So you can kind of see the shine.
Yeah.
That's why I picked this case, because it's all filtered. And the other nice thing is, I'll reach over here and grab one of them. Well, that's already primed. What the hell? Somebody just leaving primed cases laying around. I had. Good grief. Somebody wants to come clean my bench, I'll pay you $10. Or give you some free
You
bread.
got kids, that's what they're for.
Yeah, right. They're 18. They don't squat no more. So
They eat your food, don't they?
they pay for it. See.
You lost your leverage. They sleep under your roof.
Yep. So the takes a little more to get used to cleaning out your primer pocket.
Because that thing will bite your fingers.
But the problem is, because if you don't learn how to do it correctly, then it twists in there. And it can oblong that primer packet. But that's what it does. So yeah, nice. You can just done. So
There you go, Phil. A nice tool for you to think about.
and the nice thing is because it's not straight on, it's not crank it on your wrist. No, Fat Elvis, this isn't an archaic tool. This is for people who do it by hand because either A, they don't do 5,000 pieces of brass in one time, or B, they're too dang poor to buy fancier stuff. So,
Or stubborn. Stubborn counts too.
yeah, that'd be in the first quality or category. So, but it's
Yeah.
very cool. A lot nicer than any of the hand stuff, other hand stuff. So,
But yeah, that's for me. Just I got a bucket of 5.56. I got to move through the process.
so
How
David,
big of a bucket? How
What?
big of a bucket? Travis, shit. Phil, how big is your bucket?
I've actually got a like a plastic kitty litter bucket, and I've marked it on the side. It's got 2 marks on it, and I know that when I come up to the first mark, I can pour all that into my Franklin Arsenal case wet tumbler. And if I get up to the second mark, then I just pour down to the first mark. So I've got to graduate off like that. So I mean, I've got that much that is ready to be. I've got another pile that needs to be washed. I've got, I don't know, a couple of gallon jugs worth that need to be deprimed and start over from scratch. And then I've got a box of 2,000 or so cases that I haven't even started on yet because I traded a friend of mine some 30 cal bullets that I didn't really have a need for. It wasn't anything I was going to shoot. I didn't want to try to build a load out of it. And he took them off my hands and paid me in brass.
Somebody's tearing you up. McRaven's tearing you up out your truck.
If he wants to come pay the note, he can buy me whatever he wants.
Anyway, did you do anything in Guns and Reloading this week, Travis?
I did.
Good on you.
I did film and edit and post a new video on our channel, a little 5-minute video you guys should go and check out. I processed, I don't know, maybe 400 pieces of 308 brass. So I annealed it, trimmed it, primed it. Now I'm just ready to actually load it up with some powder and some projectiles. Saturday, I probably said this once already, but this time it's for reals. I shot my last 3-gun match of the season. I'm a fair-weathered shooter, so it's getting too cold. So, yeah, that's what I did.
I went shooting Saturday. I shot 2 decent groups, 10-shot groups. Then I went back and shot the ammunition that I had that hunting ammunition I'd made for my rifle a few years ago. I couldn't keep 10 rounds on paper. The only thing I could figure is maybe a scope come loose or something like that, or reticle blew loose. I don't know. I could shoot pretty decently. But when I can't keep 10 rounds on 8.5 by 11 at 100 yards, there's something wrong. Radically wrong. So my results were okay as far as the chronograph goes. I did have a couple lighting issues, but when you get an error, I just kept shooting. Get another error, kept shooting. Fired 13 rounds to finally get 10 rounds on record. And I put them in my notebook, which you can't really make out the cover. The cover's made for me, but it's a Leupold, Bradley. Leupold 3-9. It's a hunting scope. It's on my Ruger all-weather stainless. But anyway, I'll bring up the fired targets. Down here, in the bottom left corner, or bottom right corner, between my fingers, there's 10 shots in there. That's not too awful bad for having not shot the rifle in probably at least 2 years. And then, again, same thing. Down here in the bottom, don't mind me, right here, down here in this corner. Oh shit, that's the wrong one. Sorry, over here. Can you make it out? I'll be all right as soon as I learn to operate a webcam. 10 shots there. And the third target's embarrassing. There had to be something malfunctioning. Don't know what it was. I mean, you know, I got shots clear up here, down here. I didn't even get 10 hits on paper. 9 hits on paper. And we're talking at least 9.5, 10 inches center to center. Maximum spread. Now, something wrong. But I do have some brass to anneal, and I'm not going to be using that same powder again, because I do believe I had some H4895. I won't be using that powder because it's gone. I'll be using the military pull-down powder I told you guys about last week. Anyway, the WC-846. Jared, it's Ruger M77 all-weather stainless. I don't have a color photo of the thing to show y'all, but Jared, you might remember I posted it in my weekly thread, Ruger mounts. I posted it in my weekly thread to 3 or 4 weeks ago when I got the rifle back. And that's the scope mounts are Ruger. That's what I'm thinking too, Mac Raven. The scope mounts are Ruger mounts, Leupold 3-9, regular scope, not a big deal, just a hunting scope. And I started with a clean barrel, Chris Sharp. Clean barrel. The barrel was clean as the day it was made. Appreciate the suggestions, all of you. Really do. You know, 75 heads are far better than one. Mike's got something on screen. Over to you, Mike.
Oh, Paul Loud. So, for those of you who want a fancier trimmer, since, you know, some people were accusing me of using this archaic one. This is one of them little fancy Hornady 3-in-1 lock and load case prep trios.
Oh, is that for snobs? Is that for snob reloaders?
Sometimes. So, or rich ones, you know, take your pick. So, why they call it a prep trio is because it has 3 little spaces to put crap. So, instead of having to spin by hand, you can go like this and turn the fancy thing on, and then you can go like this, and you can go like this, and then you can go like this, and then you can go wee, wee, wee. So, not quite as fast because I've gotten very good at using the precision prep tool.
I take it you like it better than using power.
You know, I mean, if you're doing a couple, it's not bad. But I mean, if you were doing a couple hundred, then this would be the way to go.
Okay.
But there is better things. Hey, anybody want to give blood? Red Cross is calling me. Hookem says he's got one of these, but a gear broke, so you know only 2 of them will spin. So, but so yeah, I mean this is a lot. If you're doing a lot of brass prep, this is going to come in a little handier because especially for those of you who are going to have to worry about carpal tunnel, because now you're not twisting. But that's kind of the idea behind this, is it's not, you're using more your arm than you are your wrist. So that's kind of the thought process behind that. Because with this, you've got a different motion than if you just got regular screwdriver. So, but it's kind of one of those things. But yeah, no, Paul had this in his great, huge thing that he was working on selling the other day, or a couple of weeks ago. So I picked it up. I'm going to do some demonstrations with it versus the good old fashioned hand crank screwdriver handle. And then this puppy's going off to some Patreon. So they can
Nice.
have fancier brass prep. So I thought about, getting like a, a Dillon 750 and then a 1500 setup for it, but yeah, no.
That would be the way to go.
What happened to your camera, Travis? Did you finally decide to bless us without having to look at you?
Yeah, I'm eating some Chinese food, and I didn't want you guys seeing me do it. So,
What'd you get?
some General Chow chicken, fried rice.
So is it good General Tso's chicken, or is it like the weak, not spicy stuff?
It's the weak, not spicy stuff.
Pansy.
No, I would prefer it to be spicy.
Pansy. See, that's one of those things that if they don't make it spicy, you don't order it. Because that means it's crap. But that's just my personal opinion and my views, and not always reflect the views of the Reloading Podcast or Firearms Radio Network.
However, this does reflect my views on my own podcast. If it doesn't give your butt a chemical burn, it's not spicy enough yet.
Well done, sir. Well done.
If
I
you are
quite
not
agree.
sweating while eating it, it's not hot enough.
If it's not making your nose run while you're eating it, it's not hot enough.
That's why I like, for starters, mango habanero wings from B-Dubs.
Yeah, I was at a local place around here and had a burger that had like almost a 1/4-inch tall like patty of chopped jalapenos on top of the burger.
With seeds?
Yeah, I didn't realize I had seeds until I started eating them. But let's see here. My face was red. I was
Were they-
sweating, and my nose was running, and my eyes were watering. And the waitress asked 3 times if I was okay.
Phil, were they fresh or cooked?
I don't recall. It was one of those weird situations where, like, every bite, my wife's just on the other side of the table shaking her head like, you are going to pay. And I'm sitting there the whole time eating it like, I'm going to pay, but I'm okay with that because it tastes amazing. It really did taste good, but it was like belligerently spicy. And without being graphic, later that day, I certainly had to pay the piper for that one. My hubris came back to haunt me.
Evidently, Hookham's had some wisdom instilled upon him too, because you said you need some of Sal. That'd be Salvatore Sincamani, his liquid death. He calls it toxic waste. I'm gonna tell you what, one bottle of that stuff has lasted me a year. So he put it out this year for sale. I'll wait till next year.
That's because he makes it with Reapers.
Ooh.
Carolina Reapers, Chocolate Ghost, and Trinidadian Scorpions.
That's just not nice.
Trinidadian Scorpion Peppers. Wow.
It's just not nice.
Jim, you just got a tip on your 77.
Check your action screws. Thanks, Greg. Check your action screws. Front action screw of the 77 notorious for loosening up and allowing the rifle to shoot all over the place. Mr. Wyatt, if you don't mind, do you happen to know, you have any suggestions on how tight I should make them?
I also shoot an M77.
Mm-hmm. I'm
believe
thinking like 35 inch pounds.
I'll look it up. I remember torquing mine to the factory recommendation, but I cannot recall what that is. But I'll Google it real.
I will do that. I knew something was coming loose. Yeah, when the damn thing starts flying around all over the place.
Well, the screw in your head came loose years ago, so
Well,
Yeah.
and he has a point about that frontmost screw because, I mean, Jim, you have the rifle, so you're familiar with how it's built. But that front action screw is actually, it runs at an angle and it pulls the action back into the bedding block. So if that screw loosens up the least little bit, yeah, it plays hell with the accuracy of the rifle.
I'll do that.
Now the other two, make sure they're like snug, but don't really wrench them down real tight because it can kind of distort or add
It'll
some,
bend the action. It'll bend the action.
yeah, very slightly.
That's all it takes. No, I mean a slow bit of bend.
I'm looking for it because I can't honestly recall what it is, but I do remember thinking it was fairly high. Honestly, you know what? I'll have to get back to you on that. I've probably got a note like in the case with the rifle. Because I remember
Spider-Man 76 says he uses 30 to 35 inch pounds on wood stocks. That sounds right. 35 inch pounds sounds right. And JH 586 wanted to thank you, Phil. He has AM 77 also. About that front screw.
Yeah. Chris Sharp saying 95 inch pounds, and that's what I'm seeing too, but that sounds high.
Greg White,
saying
there it
65 pounds.
is, right there. Thank you, Mr. White. Appreciate that.
That sounds a little more reasonable. I mean, the thing of it is that because of the way it's built, it is a bit tighter than, or it's a bit higher torque than what's typical for a woodstock hunting rifle, because it doesn't just pull the action down; it pulls it down and back into the bedding block. So it's kind of a unique beast. That said, I know from personal experience, if that screw works its way loose, you're not going to get that rifle to pattern. It will pattern. It won't group.
Yeah.
The other question I had was,
Mine's a synthetic stock. That's the only thing. But that's not a big deal.
yeah. The other question: how are you about cleaning that barrel?
Well, it was clean when I started it. I cleaned it 2 years ago to give the person I loaned it to a clean barrel. It was clean when I started the other day, but I'll clean it. I haven't cleaned it yet, but I'll clean it to clean out the carbon and all the other crap out of it. I won't try real hard to get the coppering out of it.
No, and this is something that I didn't totally put stock in until I actually started shooting my M77 a fair bit. But Rugers have a well-deserved reputation for the grooves and lanes being a little on the generous side, and the majority of them tend to group better with a bit of copper fouling. It just tightens the bore up that tiny little bit and makes them behave themselves better. And I thought it was complete and total BS until I cleaned and scrubbed my barrel out, and the damn thing wouldn't shoot straight anymore. And it took less than a dozen rounds down the barrel, and it started shooting. It started like you could watch it over a series of 3-shot groups with a little bit of cooling in between. You could watch that group come in that fast. So
Well,
that's why
I say I printed 2 groups. I printed 2 groups. The third group is the one that went to hell. So it's
Yes,
like, okay, that stands to reason.
that sounds like an action screw. But that's why I was going to ask, like, if you had just scrubbed out the barrel, I was going to say go foul the hell out of it and try it again. But
Well,
if it started shooting decent and then opened up all of a sudden, action screw.
Yep. Well, the thing is, it started shooting decent first shot because I don't try to make it a point to scrub every molecule of copper out. For one thing, I don't really understand how a person can see at 18.5 inches a particulate of copper fouling. I mean, I look down my board just like anybody else, and I don't see. A lot of times, I see just shiny metal.
I think very often in the shooting community, there's as much dogma as there is like common sense involved in gun handling and cleaning and prep work and all this other stuff. So the thing I'm careful to tell people is I'm like, there's a happy medium between get the gun clean and ruin it trying to clean it. And I've seen lots and lots and lots of really screwed up M16s because somebody handed a private a whole bunch of COP and dental picks and everything else, and they just wrecked a gun trying to get it clean. You know, probably the smartest thing I ever heard about cleaning a gun, I cannot remember who I heard it from, but he said the goal is to clean the gun while doing the minimal amount of damage possible to it.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever run a patch through a clean, dry barrel?
Yep.
Particularly a tight patch. And you notice that black stuff that comes off, no matter how much you clean, you do not, you know what you're pulling out of your barrel? Steel molecules. Steel. You're pulling steel out because you're using a tight-fitting patch. If your barrel's clean, and you no matter what, you're going to get that black stuff. After about the 50th patch, that black stuff is steel. The oxidation.
The only time I put a patch through a clean, otherwise clean gun is if it's one of my carry guns, and I'm just really trying to get the lint out of it. And that's more for my own neuroses than anything else.
By the way, let me answer a chat question. They're both JH586 asking the question, what caliber are our rifles? Phil's is a 308 and so is mine. But Phil has a traditional wood stock. I don't know if your barrel's blue or not. Mine's stainless steel, and mine has a synthetic stock. Mine's probably older than Phil is. I bought it back in the 80s, and it was labeled as the all-weather stainless. It had grip and forearm inserts in it.
Yep, and mine is a Hawkeye, so it dates to about the mid-90s.
I see.
But mine's a blued barrel, blued action, and it's a laminated wood stock.
That sounds beautiful. I like laminated stocks.
Well, and here's the thing. I'm actually like, I don't mind a wood stock. I don't like the fact that most of them are that really light, almost a honey brown color. It's an aesthetics thing with me. So what I did, because the rifle I inherited had been, it was treated like a hunting rifle. It had some dings and some scuffs on the stock and everything. So I took it, sanded the crap out of it, took it all the way down to bare wood, took all the finish off of it. And I resorted to an old process I dug up out of a book someplace called ebonizing, where you actually, the short version is you soak a bunch of steel wool in vinegar so that it just rusts to hell. And then you filter all the vinegar out so you get all the rust particles out of it, and you're left with this concoction. And then you brew up the strongest black tea you can get a hold of. And the way this works is you soak that vinegar that has that iron oxide in it, and you soak that into the wood. And then once that's soaked in fairly well, you follow it up by soaking in this black tea, and the tannins in the tea react with the vinegar and the iron oxide, and it actually dyes the wood. Not a surface treatment. It soaks in and penetrates. So the top eighth to a quarter inch of that wood stock is now this really, really dark brown, almost a black, but you can still see all the wood grain and everything. And once that was done, I shot about 5 coats of matte clear over it.
You said it was laminated.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. You sanded down a laminated stock?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thanks. And Mike just put a good one in Boyd's gun stocks. That's on what I have on my 280 AI.
Yep, but because this rifle came to me from a deceased family member, I was not willing to take the stock off of it. It was one of those things where I wanted to pretty it up a bit, but I've made a point of keeping what came to me there.
Hey, Phil, off the record, as it were, just put a post, send us a picture in the admin group or the chat group, whatever. If you don't mind.
Oh no, I don't mind. I have to think about where I have it.
You don't have to put it in right now. Yeah, I agree, Trav. The Boyd stalks are great. I love those laminated stalks.
Oh, they are pretty.
And mine's called black pepper. Salt
Very
and pepper, it's called.
inexpensive too.
No, they're not inexpensive. Mine was $189.
Yeah, it's very inexpensive. I got one for my 1022, and I think it was 120, 140 bucks.
Well, they're quality product, that's for damn sure. In fact, I ordered mine at 1 inch long because I'm a relatively large human being. And I'll tell you what, that's the most comfortable rifle I ever shot. Anyway, where were
That was all what you did this week.
Okay.
That's where that all came about.
Okay.
Interesting. Where'd Jim go? And where'd Travis go for a second?
Don't know.
Because Travis disappeared and then Jim disappeared and then Travis came back.
Nobody would miss any of us if we left, guys. We're all good.
Oh, there's Jim.
I didn't even know I disappeared. Thank you. Couldn't have been gone that long. Because the last thing I heard was Mike saying that was what we did in Guns Are Reloading for the week.
Yeah, you just disappeared. And Travis disappeared and then reappeared. Now I hear an echo. They're talking about getting dents out of wood stocks in the chat. So
Yeah, it can be done with a lot of times. It can be done if there's small dents. They can be done with a hot damp rag.
Yep. All right, gang. No cartridge quarter tonight. First question is one we were going to cover last week, but then got pushed to this week. So, but crap, I forgot to remember. Phil, who was that from? The lock nut question? Do you remember? That was one you tagged me in, I think.
I couldn't honestly tell you.
Okay. It was somebody from, I want to say MeWe, but I'll look quick. My guess is Dave, but I don't remember. Doobie. Oh, here's my favorite thing from lately. This is from David Denny. And
Yeah, I saw that one.
that is by far my favorite one of these lady screaming cat memes. So
You can't shoot cast bullets in a Glock.
sure.
Yeah, I've been doing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
I like the cool cat.
So that's the Phil that Tool was talking about.
Nothing like getting your tang all tangled.
Yeah, that's the tool that Phil was talking about. Is that Lyman hand tool there? Since somebody else was nice enough to post it in. Come on.
It does get the job done. It feels pretty decent in the hand too.
Yeah.
And while it won't win a speed contest, I don't know. At the end of the day, I honestly don't mind it taking me a little bit longer to do the job because that's my leisure time anyway.
It does a good job too. You can also use it for primer pocket chamfering too. You know that, Phil.
I don't chamfer primer pockets.
You're not using GI brass?
No, I swage.
Okay. I don't trust it either. I don't trust it because I can't get it in there square by hand. I don't trust it because I'm afraid of taking too much off the walls of the primer pocket.
And that's kind of my idea behind using a mandrel and actually swaging the brass as opposed to trimming it, because if you're swaging the brass, you're only ever going to be able to swage it X amount based on the size of the mandrel you're using. So it's literally as close to idiot proof as I can imagine it being. Not to mention, I like the idea. I mean, I like the idea of the fact that when you crimp in a primer, you're moving the metal, or you're moving the brass to crimp the primer in, and when you swage it, you're pushing it back out where it was to begin with. You're not just taking it out.
That's right, Phil.
World of opinions out there. That's mine.
Moving it in, moving it out. The metal is plastic.
Yeah, in the chemical sense, yeah.
In the metallurgical sense.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, sorry, Phil. It was Travis that tagged me in it. So it was Brian Y. And it was in the Reloading Podcast group on Facebook. So question is, I have a question I'd like to hear answered on the podcast. I usually use RCBS dies, but sometimes have the brass set screw in the lock nut either fails or gets stripped out. So I'll replace them with a Hornady lock nut that tightens with an Allen screw that compresses the split lock nut around the die. So my question is twofold. First, why is it that when I tighten the Allen screw in the lock nut seems to tighten down in the press? Once it tightened down so much that when I used a wrench to loosen the die, the black threaded sleeve that rests inside the rock chucker press came out with the die instead of the die coming out of the press. My second question, does using a Hornady style lock nut have the potential to squish the die out of round and cause concentricity issues, or have other negative effects that might degrade accuracy? So, there's some good thoughts on that stuff in there. And I was just going to grab a couple things quick because I forgot to grab them earlier. All right. So here is ye old Hornady die with ye old. One of these days I'll get my brain and my hand to cooperate. So that's the brass set screw. Okay. Now, sorry, RCBS, not Hornady. This is RCBS. Or this is Hornady. Sure, see? Hornady. Yeah, I just wanted to drink heavily and go to bed when I got home. It's been that type of day. So this is what they're talking about with the Hornady.
It's got a split in it. It's cut.
Yeah, it's cut. And then it has a set screw that goes all the way through. So this tightens around the die, but there isn't anything actually touching the threads.
Those are the ones I prefer, actually.
Actually, Mike, forgive me for disputing you with you, but that actually does tighten up on the threads. Nothing moves against it except the split ring itself. It compresses the threads concentric with the axis of the die. The set screw, the locking screw, doesn't touch the threads. You're right on that, Mike.
Technically, what it does is it tightens this up to make it the correct size, so it actually acts like a double nut. So, as far as the grand scheme of things, for all intents and purposes, it's not actually touching the threads like that is, or other ones.
Right. I agree with that.
Well, that was my point.
So is what happening? I'm not sure, but is what happening when you tighten that up? Let's just say I got a lock collar in my hand here. When you tighten it down, is it actually kind of kicking your nut to one side or the other, and that's kind of what's locking it down on your press?
I don't know if he commented.
You're talking about
I mean,
with
is
the
that-
RCBS lock ring?
Just to say any of them, because I have this issue all the time too. It doesn't matter what lock ring you use. If you tighten it up too much, you can't sometimes grab a hold of the lock ring itself and just screw it out. So generally, I don't tighten it down too tight anymore. But I know exactly what he's talking about. And my thought is, no matter what you're doing, if you're using an Allen set screw or the Hornet decompression ones, my thought is with the pitch of the threads, when you tighten it, it's going to kick your lock ring, to one side, and that's what's actually pinching it onto your press. Does that make sense, Jim? Would you say that's very, very possibly what happens when you tighten up on your lock rings?
Well, think about a rubber band. You put it around something smooth like that, or threads like that. The first thing it's going to do is going to adjust automatically to the pitch of the thread. The pitch is the distance from one screw to the next. Where you have like a 20 pitch thread, you have 20 threads per inch, and all that. The pitch is the actual lead in between the crest of each thread. So that's exactly what it's doing. Is think about a rubber band pulling it against there, right? And now what they do is they put notches in that brass set screw Mike's got in his hand that are supposed to not damage the. I'm sorry, there's a plug behind that. That plug has the notches filed into it, machined into it, to marry up and match up with the threads of the die. Well, the brass set screw came along because it's way cheaper to manufacture, and it doesn't, quote, damage the threads.
Yes,
Quote,
it does.
unquote. Well, Phil's not disputing me. Because
I'm
if
not-
you hear the sarcasm in my voice, you'll know Phil's quite agreeing with me very much.
Yes.
Well, but he's asking why, when you tighten it down, does it?
I'm getting
lock?
here.
Okay.
I'm getting here. So when he tightens it down on his body, on his die body, down against the press. Okay, what he's doing is he's just tightening the hell out of it. With this, it's when you have mechanical leverage like that. Think about it, Travis. You ever tighten something like a exhaust or intake manifold bolt? You're tightening a third object down to the block of the engine. Well, you tighten that up. Yes, you're actually stretching the bolt. You're actually stretching the bolt out somewhat. If you over tighten it, you'll stretch it to the point you break the bolt because you stretched it too far. Well, that's what he's doing. Now, of course, with 7/8 thread, you're not going to break that. If you do, you're not human. But what he's doing is he's causing the black sleeve to come out of the top of his press, which is only pressed in. So the bigger ones are the Fagmax or whatever they call it. They actually have it set up for the 1.5 thread, 1.5 12 thread, but that's for 50 caliber. So you actually have two die bodies, 7/8 14, and then that black sleeve it's in there, as he calls it. It's not pressed in; it's threaded in. Well, if he's tightening it down, that's what's happening. He's just unthreading it.
See, I think what people are thinking is these lock rings are supposed to literally freeze it so it doesn't move at all.
Or again, ever again. Mike, that ring you had, doesn't it have 2 wrench flats on the side?
What, this one?
Yeah, that Hornet 8 lock ring. That's not why that thing is put there. They're not put there for you to tighten it down onto the press.
Nope. So, okay. The way a lock ring is supposed to work, gang, isn't...
Mike, zoom in on the press a little bit, please. We can't make out
I don't know
details.
if I have a way to zoom or not.
Okay.
Let's see here.
You could just focus the video on just your screen for a minute. That'll at least double it in size. There we go.
That helps. Yay! Now adjust your camera to move it to center up that die body. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So this lock ring that's on here isn't designed to make it so this thing doesn't move.
And Mike, before you tighten it down,
It's a stop.
put your index finger up on the top of it and shove that die back and forth a little bit. Loose, yes. Can you see the motion, Travis? That's the answer to your question. You've got side play in it. It has to be there because for manufacturing purposes.
Well, you're using coarse threads versus fine threads. Any coarse thread setup ever has play in it.
Right. It's the slop. It's the slop in your threads.
Okay.
And that's okay. Go on.
So, well, go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
No, so my thought was like you got that slop in your threads from the die itself, and then the thread pitch in your press. So when you thread your die down, and then a guy goes and tightens his lock ring, it's taking up that slop, and that's kind of kicking it to one side. I mean, it's very, very slight, but that's what's locking it down and making it hard for him to remove it as he's thinking he needs to.
So this here is a Lee die. And what Lee's solution is rather simple. O-ring. And what that does is that creates a friction so it won't vibrate loose one way or the other easily. Now, I don't care who you are or what you do, you can vibrate a die loose. Just happens because of the fact that the machine screw or the machine threading is coarse, it's not fine. So it's not, when you're working on an automotive system, if something is supposed to go together and not come apart easily, it's a fine thread. Everything that is supposed to go together and not come apart easily and is supposed to be vibration proof is a fine thread. If it's something that's going to be taken apart quite a bit, it's a coarse thread. Now, there are exceptions to that rule because engineers are stupid, but cars would be a lot different if the automotive engineers would ever actually have to work on them once they designed them. See, what they do to pick automotive engineers is they get the incoming engineers to the university, they get them together, pile them in a classroom, and they start doing aptitudes. The really, really smart ones get to be nuclear engineers, and then, so on and so forth, until the guy sitting in the back of the class is going, congratulations, you're automotive engineers. So if you ever want to know why you have problems with your cars. So,
Well, to corroborate what Mike is saying, fine threads is what you have on your lug nuts. Lug nuts should not ever come loose. I actually
that
lubricate
is a
mine
lie.
to keep them free. Well, the fine threads are not supposed to ever come loose.
no, that is a lie that fine threads are used on lug nuts. Probably about a third of the vehicles out there use a fine thread. Most of them are still coarse, especially domestic. So, but anyway, so what happens with this style is the brass acts as a stop. So instead of the O-ring here hitting this and stopping it, this is designed to go to a certain point, and then this lock ring is designed to put force on the die body to keep from turning. Same thing as the Hornady. So you're twisting the die a little bit. Now, granted, with that thick of steel, you're going to be hard pressed to deform the die with that brass set screw. What some people will do is they'll put a piece of lead shot in. They'll take the screw out, put a piece of lead shot in, and then put the screw back in. It's kind of a personal preference thing. The brass will damage the threads, In fact, if we got a microscope out, we could go around this die body and you could see everywhere I put the set screw because the threads are curled. Now, in the grand scheme of things, with how coarse the threads are, it doesn't really make it really makes no difference. So you're talking having to tighten and loosen that set screw in literally the same spot hundreds of times before you would actually curl that thread over enough with the coarse thread to actually make a difference. So, put the lead shot in if you want. Don't put the lead shot in if you don't want. Doesn't really, honestly, unless you're constantly taking your dies in and out. You're talking, like I said, hundreds of times before you actually will cause that to be enough so the threads will strip out and you won't be able to get the die off.
I like the Forster method. It just snaps in.
Yeah.
Well, and as a matter of procedure, I was that person that when I first started out, like once I figured out how to set my dies up, I wanted to lock them all down so that way I wouldn't screw it up. And the point I've come to now is that the only dies I have that are like, quote, locked down or I have the set screws engaged in is my sizing dies, because that's the one step that doesn't change. But like, I don't even bother with the lock rings on with the set screws on my seating dies. I don't bother. I set up my seating dies from scratch every single time.
Same here.
Mm-hmm.
I set the taper crimp. I set the seating depth. I've reached a point where even if I'm reproducing a load that I use all the time, like my go-to 9mm load that I've got ammo cans lying around the house full of, I set that die up from scratch every time. And honestly, if you get over the discomfort of having to set that die up every time, you'll become fairly adept at setting your dies up very, very quickly, just from repetition.
Uh-huh.
Like once you understand intellectually like how it works and how what you're doing is affecting your, the dimensions of your finished product, you get really comfortable with it really quickly. And if you're in my position where I've reached a point where I've got a decent ammo stock and now I'm experimenting with different bullets, different weights, different seating depths, now I'm at a point where there's no point locking any part of that die down. I'm going to change it tomorrow anyway.
As people have watched me screw dies in and out, you'll notice I don't touch the lock ring purposely. You'll notice most of your die makers put this fancy knurling on here somewhere else because they usually don't want you touching the lock ring either. Like there's the Hornady or the RCBS. It's got the knurling at the top. Hornady's got the knurling all over the place. And actually, one of my favorite features of Hornady as far as their decapping dies is they actually put wrench notches in the die body. Because they know most people, once they get this set to where they want it, are going to snug that down and not move it again. So they don't want to have to use this to take the die in and out. You can put a wrench here if you want. Now, granted, on this one, that wrench serves two purposes. One, it serves for this, but two, it serves for this so you can lock the pin down so that when you go to decap, it doesn't push the pin way out. So, but yeah, Lee, they've got a little bit of knurling depending on the die, but their lock ring design doesn't hold it as snug either. So usually it's not as, you don't need as much force to twist the thing back out. So now with Hornady, if you get the lock and load press, what they have is these little things. So it's kind of a lock ring on steroids, essentially. So what they've designed is this actually twists in to the actual press, and you can see it's threaded. And so what you do Is you actually screw the die into this. Obviously, this is not going to be set right because this isn't set up for this. But so now you can actually snug that down and have it all nice and snug, and then you just twist this out, lift it out. So, everybody's got the little different ones. Hey, Travis, wake up, Travis.
Yes.
Don't you have some really, really special lock rings?
What do
Or
you
at least
mean?
one?
Remind me what you're talking about.
Didn't you order one of? Oh, cracky. A few shows back, the gentleman from Georgia.
Oh, 1 second.
You have to split the screen again, Mike. You're still focused on your press.
Yep. I didn't think they wanted to see Travis walking away.
No. Cut. Cut the silence out. Travis can't find what he's looking for.
Yeah, he did.
No, I am trying to remember the name. That's what I was. Thanks for pointing that out, Jim. I was trying to look for the. And something happened to my video. What'd you do, Mike?
I didn't do nothing to your video.
Half of his video went black.
Yeah, it's using the 1 second.
Wow, that's really zoomed in. I need to fix that.
Okay, talk amongst yourselves for a minute.
Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
Boo.
Boo hiss. Boo.
I kind of want to see Mike smack his camera again and holler focus.
There you go.
Yeah, Fat Elvis has the right. My camera died now.
Your camera died.
Yeah.
But
Travis has no camera. That's what I think he's trying to say.
Yeah, it says no camera.
See, the problem is when you have a face made for radio, cameras break.
But Fat Elvis has what this is called. It's the Wheeler click adjustable lock ring.
I don't think it's Wheeler, though. Widden.
That's it.
Widden. Widden. Click adjustable lock rings.
His name was John Whedon.
John Widden. Widden. And he makes those to go on to any dies. So.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, hi, Travis.
Yeah, so this was a very cool lock ring. So, okay.
Hold on,
you.
Travis.
It's on you,
Hold on.
Mike.
I know. You should be able to do this also, Travis.
Okay, let me.
Right underneath the Foursquare, there should be a bunch of little displays.
Under the where?
Right underneath the Foursquare.
What, share screen?
No, not that far down.
I don't have any other things below that.
No, we don't have any settings to speak of. The settings we have are individual settings.
That's bullcrap.
Yeah, so this lock ring is basically two pieces, and it's really cool because if you can see in the video, it looks like there's three little set screws. There's actually two. The third one is like a rubber insert, and that's just a piece sticking out, but there's a two set screws that you undo, and one locks the lock ring inner to the die body. The other one locks the inner to the outer ring. There you go. And you can see there is you can see 2 Allen wrench screws right there. So the cool thing with this lock ring is you can screw this down. If you're off a couple thousandths or something, you can unlock it and hold the lock ring and turn your die up and then lock it back down, and you can kind of gain some measurements off of it by locking and unlocking those Allen wrench screws right there. And
one of the nicest things I see about that is the fact that that particular lock ring has no wrench flats. That's
correct.
You tighten it down, and when it hits the press, you stop.
Yes,
it's for precision and repeatability.
Exactly, Jim. And like I said, this has audible and tactile clicks on it, just kind of like your scope. So you can put it in there. You can't. It's hard to explain, but you can't really go down with it because you're bottoming the lock ring on your press, but you can come up with it. So you can kind of set it down. If you're off a little bit, you can unlock it, hold that, and click it out. You can hear it click and feel it clicking up, and each click is 1/1000th of an inch. So you can click it out, lock it back down, and it was super handy. I have this set up right now for my 22-250, and I do absolutely. So Chris Sharp's asking how it works with the micrometer dies. That's basically what you're doing. That's basically what this is turning your die body into a micrometer. He's talking about.
No, he's talking about like the reading seating dies.
Right. I was going to grab one of my Hornady ones. I have the micrometer seating on top. That's basically exactly what that is, Chris, except you're using it on, like my instance, you can use it on any die. So I'm using it on my seating die, but that's basically exactly the same concept.
Spudman got a point. That's a $47 lock ring. Yeah, Mike's got it too. Mike's got the
right there. Yep. So just picture that exact setup micrometer like Mike's showing us, except it's converted into your lock ring.
Well,
that means you could put it on anything at all that has threads like that.
You only have to buy one because you convert any sizing die you've got with that tool, the $47 lock ring. It's
Correct.
expensive, but you move it around. You buy once, cry once.
Yeah, but like I said, you can use it on any die. So if you wanted to, you could put it on a seating die. If you wanted just to have 1 inch, 100,000th of an inch increments, you could, I really I got one, and that's the same thing. I was just thinking, I just buy one, Jim, and I could use it on other dies when I'm done with my, loading up for 22-250. I can switch it around to another process and keep it on there and then switch it back and forth.
Like I said, buy once, cry once.
The older I get, the more I live by that.
The more you spend money.
The more I try to convince myself, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, you turn a standard die into a micrometer adjustable die.
Yeah. Whedon Gunworks. WHIDDEN. Gunworks.
I'll put that in the show notes.
Whidden.
We had him on the show.
Yes. He's a hell of a gunsmith.
Yeah, he makes a lot of really nice dies and custom stuff. And this was what I called him up and ordered from him. And I even have now that I think about it, we actually have a review of this in action on our YouTube feed. So if you guys want to go check that out.
Travis, let me throw something in there. Chris asked a very, very good question. He wants to know if it'll fit in the Forster coax slot. And I would dare say the answer is no.
I'm going to say no because we already dealt with a similar issue on some other lock rings that we were talking about, Jim.
Right. And it's
Can't
quite
remember.
that ring, I could see even from here to Idaho, I could see through video that ring is quite a bit taller than her standard lock ring.
No, but Chris Sharp did just remind me that he does. He says they do work on the coax, but I think he has a separate lock ring, not this exact one that I have, but I think if you go to his website, now that I think about it, he does have a different one that will fit the coax.
Chris Sharp says just looked at his page and they do work on the coax. Okay, that's fine. That's what I thought. Specifically they make one specifically for the coax.
Yes, I just like I said, I just remember he does make one specifically. This one will not work, but he does have one that will work with the coax.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate that.
And Paul, thanks for sending those 308 dies.
What, you didn't have 308 dice with all the stuff you've got?
I've got several, but I needed another set.
For what?
I don't know.
I can see if you're going to set up 2 or 3 presses, but good God, Travis. 3 or 4 sets of 308 dice?
I think I got 3.
You're never going to wear them out. You'll wear your shoulder out before you wear the 308 die out.
So what Redding uses is they've got a little piece of metal down in the bottom there. As you can see, you can't see straight through to the threads, but it is shaped the same as the threads, and then it acts like a brake when you tighten that in and push it against it. Then it pushes against the threads and grabs. I didn't tighten it down, Jim.
No, Mike, it's not that. I'm laughing about something in the chat Chris Sharp put up.
Oh.
It's for Phil.
Yeah. So, as you can see, right now so it locks it in, and then it keeps it still.
Yeah, it's got a female thread on it that fits in those male threads on that die.
Yep. So, and then as you tighten and loosen, it moves in and out. You can kind of see it. You can see the different coloring in the lock ring.
Yep, it matches up to the die, the female threads in the die.
Yep. Hi, pups. Any rate.
You're being addressed again, Phil.
Oh, good grief.
I'm not dignifying him with a response.
Oh, I think we've managed to hit a sore spot.
Oh, no, it's not y'all. Somebody else hit a sore spot with me. Unrelated to Reloading Podcast.
Okay.
Doesn't look like it's a lead ball there, Spudman. It looks like it's actually a little piece. 'Cause here it is.
What'd you do? Press that out of there, Mike?
Yeah.
So that's the back side, right? That's not the,
Yeah,
that's the thread
that's
side.
true.
That's the thread side. It's got a V in it.
No.
Mike, is there any way you can set it on a piece of paper and hold it up, hold the threads up in such a way we can see it? Careful you don't drop it in that garage.
So this is actually the thread side. But I did put an extra cross in it, getting it out. you can kind of see the goofy cross. You can see the deep groove going that way. That's designed to sit against the threads, and then you can kind of see going the opposite direction. The little schmuck I made. But then the other side of it, just a cup. Almost looks like a gas check. So. But yeah, it squishes pretty easy, so it's definitely a softer metal. And then see here now.
Should be able to see down into the threads.
If I can get it at
Yeah.
the right angle, and I can't get light in there, so forget it. Any rate, so that's that. That's what Redding does. But yeah, Wooden Gun Works has got the quick adjustable ones that Travis was showing everybody. So
that just tightens down against the press, finger tight, correct, Travis? You ever have any trouble unthreading it at all?
No. It takes a little bit of, you got to get it in your hands and actually use it and kind of figure it out. It's very nice and precise, but there is a learning curve to it. Like I said, once you kind of learn that if you go to my video, I kind of walk through all the steps on it.
yeah,
But like I said, if you just picture, just for a quick reference, if you picture two pieces, an inner and an outer, the inner one is what touches your press. Or sorry, the inner one is connected to your die body. The outer one touches your press. So because of that, you can't go down with it. You can go up.
I follow you.
If that makes sense. So once you get in the range of where you're at, you can kind of go past it if you want, and then click up to hit your desired measurement of whatever you're working with.
So instead of oversizing your brass by 4,000ths, you can adjust it to resize your brass only 1,000ths. So basically, you're coming up.
Correct.
Yeah, you over adjust it slightly. Yeah, I know what you mean. But anyway.
So the basic long and short answer, Hornady, I mean, you're going to be talking about probably stripping out the screw long before you could put enough pressure to create an outer round situation.
Right. By the way, Lyman lock rings work on the same principle, and they don't have a wrench flat. All they have is knurling. If I googled up on another tab, Lyman lock rings. I like them best of all. They're sold for about $4.50 if you buy them on the retail market.
Because that's a Lyman lock ring.
Well, that's not the aluminum split ring I'm talking about.
Okay. I just remembered I had a set of 9mm dice.
Mm.
So. At any rate, so I think that's now glue.
We got something here I would like Travis to see from Chris Sharp. He put up the information. I'll put it in the private chat. Thanks, Chris. That's a nice tidbit. I'll put it in there. I'll just copy and paste it.
It's not adjustable with the Dillon floating tool head.
Right. I'm gonna put that in.
They are the ones that make the Dillon floating tool head, and they have warnings for both that and they have warnings on that and on the universal just click adjustable lock ring. So, but so Knox Spector.
I'll put that in the host chat.
Knox Spector wants to know: is it necessary to lube older factory hard cast lead bullets? If so, with what?
He's
Knock
going
inspector, I'm
to.
wondering, are you talking like you bought hard cast bullets from someone as opposed to casting them yourself? Is
Well,
that what
you
he's talking
see,
about, or is he talking about already loaded ammo?
Mike. You remember there are commercial bullets sold by Hornady, and they used to be anyway. Hornady and a few others. They're just like a dead soft lead bullet,
Mm-hmm.
and they came with a coating of lubricant on it, like a
Mhm.
mica dust coating.
That's why I'm asking which ones he's referring to.
Yeah, yeah. And to answer CJ Colt, it's because I don't have any Forcer lock rings. I've never used Forcer lock rings for my press. I don't have I don't even have Forcer dies. I've got an eclectic collection of dies. I got Dillon, I got RCBS, I got Lee, I got Lyman. Whatever was available is what I bought, and they're good old dies. Thank you, Paul. But Chris, if you would, you could pass that on to Travis on a private channel, in case I forget or Travis doesn't see it, because it looks like he's having a couple issues.
So, he's got 500 Spear, 240 grain, 44 cal. They're like 35 years old. I would probably liquid alox them after I clean them.
Why does Travis have a knack for not coming around when somebody mentions liquid alox?
Well, I mean, he could powder coat them if he wanted, but
Yeah, I know.
my guess is if they're that old, even if it's the mica dust, it's probably going to be ineffective. So I would look at using something else.
Yeah, the liquid alox, if you put it on light enough coating, I mean, like 1 drop per bullet is way the hell too damn much. But if you put it on where it just barely starts to change the color of the metal to a light tan, that's plenty of lube. It sounds like Knox Inspector's bullets have they're so old they're oxidizing white, lead oxide on white.
Could be. All right, gang. Sorry for the late start, but we kind of really covered that. It's kind of nice to just go in and talk about lock nuts. Not something we really discuss a lot. So, but you kind of got to see how a couple of the different companies do them well, and I guess I'll have to look at these Lyman lock nuts that their Jim is talking about. So I don't know. Frankly, I like the Lee ones. That O-ring works just slicker than snot. So.
Well, if you know, the thing is too, in moderation is the key here. If you're going to tighten down your lock nuts, don't wrench them super tight. You know, I would joke with Jason one night on the podcast about, big strong man, Mongo crush, Mongo smash. You remember that, Mike? I know you do.
Yep.
Don't go Mongo on your dies. Don't go all Mongo. If it's persistently coming loose, looking to see why. Yeah, Mike's got his dice set finger tight, finger loose. Yep.
And by the way, these have been sitting in here, I don't know, 4.5, 5 years. So.
Travis, I know you can hear me. Look in the private chat. There's a message from Chris Sharp. I copied and pasted it in the host chat.
So.
Well, the reason why we got the late start was evidently something to do with Chrome. My setup here at home, it wasn't an ambient noise, but something that Phil and Mike could hear. It was causing poor quality issue, or a serious quality issue in the audio of the podcast. So Mike asked me to install, what the hell's the name of this browser? Firefox, Mozilla Firefox. And I haven't used the Netscape stuff from Mozilla for a long time. It's not bad. I'll have to do some exploring.
Firefox is actually one of the safer browsers out there. And one
Yeah,
of the,
they seem to boost the part about privacy.
so
Jim, you and I could have very long conversations about Firefox
Maybe we should.
away from this podcast.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we don't get political here.
no, they're better an option than Chrome. So, but at any rate, just want to take time to thank everybody who sends us questions, tunes in every week. The goal is to spend more time on single topics like this tonight, where we just kind of delve into one thing, and maybe it'll just be, is as simple as something like lock rings, but it isn't, because it's a very important thing. If you don't have your die tightened down, now this is swaging die, so it really doesn't make a difference if it's,
Well, Mike, I got to say that I remember some of the earlier episodes that you and Jim did. You guys kind of did exactly that, where you focused more on just one topic. And personally, I really like that, because if it was something that I had not heard of or knew about, you guys went into great depth on it. And even if it was something I knew about, you guys usually covered something that you didn't even know was an issue, or something about whatever the topic was. And I know I really enjoyed the way that you guys used to go into basically one topic per episode. And I think it's a good thing if that's kind of the direction we're kind of looking at going.
Travis, you know what? You know how to get to the show notes. Put your idea for a show in the show notes. There's 4 or 5 of us, and truthfully, we could all work together to adjust the show notes to improve the show.
I know I usually like to just message Mike and complain. That's usually my tactic.
Yeah, but that's not the right thing to do.
And to be fair, a lot of the time that was, a lot of the older episodes, we were doing the, step by step, teaching people how to reload. So that was the main thing. Sorry, my wife.
Right, Mike. I forgot about that. That's exactly what we were doing. We were teaching people how to reload.
Yeah.
I remember one time we did 5 episodes of Reloading Podcasts on nothing but casting bullets.
Mm-hmm.
They're still out there.
I think we did 4 on brass prep. So
yeah, we made it a point to make notes as to where we left off, and that's where we continued. Picked up to continue. Basically, I think it sounds like, and from looking at the comments, that's what our listeners like, is single topics.
So
I say, even if you have, let's say we have one topic, we've got 4 guys on the panel. There's going to be at least 4 different ways of doing something sometimes.
I have a suggestion for next week.
well, that means we can't cover powder coating because we're only going to have 2.
I think if we do that in the chat, we're going to have about 20 to 40 who want to comment on the powder coating.
Well, I'll just mute myself for the whole damned episode. Mike, I have a suggestion. Why don't we cover shell holders in a single stage press, shell holders next week, or something along that line?
Well, if we're going to do shell holders, we should probably get Robin on.
Why? Save him for episode 300.
Oh, Robin loves coming on.
I know.
But the reason is that way he can come and talk.
Oh, that's right. I never did order that set of shell holders from him.
Is that it? No, that's my 6.5 284 seizing die.
So I have 2 styles of shell holders for my single stage press. But
2 styles? What do you mean?
Actually, 2 styles of shell holders. I'm sorry, not for my single stage press. I have a Lee priming tool. Yes, Mike's got something right. I also have regular RCBS snap in. Yes, that's the second style I have. But for my lead priming tool, now you reload quite a bit on your Dylan, but for my lead priming tool, I have a different. All they did was take the bottom of that shell holder off.
Yep, I got a couple of those hand priming tools. I used to use them all the time.
Well,
What?
that's
Just
the
real
second
quick,
style.
Jim. What's the purpose? Like, let's say my RCBS competition dies, they've got that extended shell holder. You know what I'm talking about?
No. Travis, save it for next week.
Yeah.
Have your shell holder right there on your bench or in your desk, ready to take and show us on the camera.
Well, you better figure out what the purpose of why it's taller than normal, so you can tell me all about it. Then.
No,
simple
you're
reason.
using it. You know more about it than I do.
It's
You
actually
do.
a simple
I was
reason.
asking you to explain to me why.
Hey, guess what? We'll cover it next week when we're talking about shell holders.
Shut up, Travis. Shut up, Jim.
Pretty much. All right, gang. So, want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk about shell holders next week, and we'll explain why those are taller, and we'll teach Travis something new.
That's what I like. That's what I'm here for.
Jim's got a fan in the chat about not powder coating, so we'll cover that someday too. We'll get there. But at any rate, thanks again to Patriot Patch Company. Wrong way. PatriotPatch.co for being the bandwidth sponsor. Thanks to Sean and the gang over at Firearms Radio Network for giving us a place to hang out every week. Thanks to these fine gentlemen for coming and hanging out with me. And thanks to everybody that tunes in every week. I'll get 275 posted as soon as I can get most of those annoying, obnoxious sounds out. So that's why it's not out yet. But on that note, gang, keep your brass shiny.
Remember, guys, Jeff Epstein didn't kill himself.
You went there.
Well, somebody had to.
Buy it cheap and stack it deep. Hide it from the Clintons. God, Jim.
Oh God!
He started it.
Hey, maybe that's
I
the
did
reason
not.
He's not been on the
No,
show
I
in a
said
long
Travis started it.
Oh, that's the guy down below you on my screen. But anyway, buy some liquid A-Lox. Buy the quart.
time. And drink.
And don't use too much of it. Even though you have a quart of it, you don't need to put an ounce on each bullet.
It's a sign off, not a manifesto, Jim.
Oh,
Jim,
that's
is it
right.
like you? Does it dry out over time?
Take somebody shooting, reload some ammo, listen to the podcast, and have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
All right.